Nobody noticed Ravi Khanna until he did something kind. That was the problem with being human on a station full of aliens who already decided what you were before you ever opened your mouth. 3 months at the Galactic Union Academy aboard Station Auralia, and Ravi had learned one truth very quickly. The galaxy did not hate humans. It was worse than that. The galaxy had already made up its mind about them. Dangerous, primitive, strong but stupid. Every species here looked at him like he was a loaded weapon someone had accidentally let into a school. He sat in the third row of Instructor Hollick's xenobiology class, quiet as always. Hollick was a Chiron, tall and insectoid with clicking mandibles and 4 black eyes that never seemed to blink. He was brilliant, respected, and completely convinced that humans had no business being in his classroom. Can anyone describe the survival adaptations of organisms on high-gravity toxic worlds? Hollick asked, scanning the room. His gaze passed over Ravi like he was an empty chair. He pointed to a Pelori student instead. Finra, sitting next to Ravi, noticed. She always noticed. The Dorvani female had soft amber fur and sharp golden eyes that missed nothing. She was Ravi's assigned study partner. And in 3 months, she had gone from being terrified of him to being quietly fascinated. He skipped you again, Finra whispered. Ravi shrugged. He will come around. You keep saying that. Because it keeps being true. He smiled at her, and Finra felt that strange warmth she always felt when he did that. Humans had an odd way of making their faces soft and open. It was disarming in a way she could not quite explain. After class, Ravi walked with Finra through the wide corridors of the station. Auralia was massive, home to over 10,000 students from dozens of species. The halls were filled with beings of every shape and size. Ravi moved through them the way he moved through everything, quietly and without drawing attention. Finra had asked him once why he never fought back against the comments, the jokes, the little cruelties that came with being the only human in most rooms. He had told her something she still thought about. Where I grew up, the mountains go so high that the air becomes too thin to breathe. The wind blows so hard it can knock you off a cliff. You learn very quickly that reacting to every little thing will kill you. You save your energy for what matters. She had looked up his homeworld after that conversation. Earth, Class 12 Deathworld. The file had been terrifying. Earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, hurricanes, predators that hunted in packs, temperatures that range from 60 degrees above zero to 60 below. And humans live there without any natural armor. No claws, no venom, no wings. Just soft skin and big brains and a stubbornness that the file described as pathological persistence. Finra had not slept well that night. Now, in the cafeteria, she watched Ravi do the thing that confused her most about humans. A small Pelori student named Nissa, barely half a meter tall, with delicate moth-like wings that glowed faintly blue, tripped and sent her food tray clattering across the floor. A table of Brakari students, big reptilian males with armored hides and deep laughs, erupted in mockery. Look at the little glow bug, one of them said. Cannot even walk straight. Nissa's wings dimmed. That was a Pelori shame response, and everyone in the cafeteria knew it. Ravi was already moving. He knelt beside Nissa, picked up her tray, gathered her scattered food, and set it all back neatly. Then he offered her his hand. She looked up at him with wide, wet eyes, and he helped her to her feet with a gentleness that seemed impossible for a Deathworld species. Come sit with us, he said simply. The Brakari table went quiet. Not because Ravi threatened them. He had not even looked at them. But something about the way he moved, the calm certainty of it, made them swallow their next joke. Nissa sat with Ravi and Finra that day. She barely spoke, but her wings slowly brightened again. By the end of the meal, she was glowing a soft, steady white, which Finra knew meant she felt safe. Ravi walked them both back to the residential deck afterward. At the junction where their paths split, Finra stopped him. You know they will just mock her again tomorrow. Maybe, Ravi said. But today she did not eat alone. Finra opened her mouth to respond, but was cut off by a station-wide announcement. The automated voice filled every corridor. Attention all residents. Supply convoy Auralia 7 has failed to report at its scheduled checkpoint. Station security is investigating. There is no cause for alarm. Please continue normal activities. Ravi listened to the announcement with his head slightly tilted, the way Finra had seen Earth predators do in nature documentaries when they heard something in the distance. Ravi, it is probably nothing, he said, but his eyes had changed, just slightly. Something behind them had shifted, like a door opening into a darker room. Finra had never seen that look before, and it made the fur on the back of her neck stand up. Get some rest, he told her, and his voice was warm again, normal again. He gave Nissa a small wave, and the Pelori girl waved back with a shy flutter of her wings. Finra watched him walk away down the corridor, a single human figure among hundreds of aliens, and she thought about what his homeworld file had said under the section marked Threat Assessment. It had read, "Do not mistake their kindness for weakness. It is a choice, and they can choose differently." She had not understood that line before. Watching Ravi disappear around the corner, she was beginning to. The first explosion did not sound like an explosion. It sounded like the station itself screaming, a deep metallic groan that traveled through the walls, the floor, and up through every bone and every body aboard Auralia. Ravi was in the library with Fenra when it happened. They had been studying for Halleck's midterm exam, datapads spread across the table when the lights died. For 2 full seconds, the station was completely dark. Then the emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in a deep, pulsing red. The second explosion was closer. The floor bucked hard enough to throw Fenra out of her chair. Ravi caught her before she hit the ground, one arm around her waist, already on his feet before she even understood what was happening. Alarms screamed through the corridors. The automated voice returned, but it was different now. Clipped. Urgent. Warning. Hull breach detected on decks 9 through 14. Security protocols engaged. All personnel shelter in place. Students began pouring into the library from the surrounding halls. Ravi counted them as they came. DRO, the 4-armed TESOC engineering student, was among the first, his gray stone-like skin flushed dark with stress. Behind him came Nissa, her wings flickering in panicked bursts of white and violet. Then more from a dozen different species, maybe 30 students in all, stumbling in before the blast doors sealed shut behind them with a heavy, final clang. They were locked in. "What is happening?" someone wailed. "Pirates," DRO said, his voice like grinding gravel. He had his datapad out, trying to pull up station feeds. "Brakari marauders. They hit the defense grid first. It is completely down." The room erupted. Students were crying, shouting, pressing against the sealed doors. A Pelori boy fainted. 2 Dorvani students held each other and shook. Finra looked at Ravi, but he was standing perfectly still in the middle of the chaos. His eyes were moving, scanning the room, the exits, the ceiling, the ventilation grates. His breathing had changed. It was slow and deep and rhythmic, like a machine cycling into a different mode. She had studied human biology for her xenobiology coursework. She knew what she was seeing. His adrenal system was activating. His pupils were dilating. His heart rate was dropping, not rising, because humans under extreme stress did not just panic. Some of them, the trained ones, the ones who had survived real danger before, went the other direction. They became calm, focused, cold. She had never seen it in person. It was terrifying and beautiful at the same time. "Ravi," she whispered. He looked at her, and his eyes were not the eyes of the gentle boy who picked up Nissa's food tray. They were darker, sharper, ancient in a way that had nothing to do with age. "I need you to help me," he said quietly. "Can you do that?" She nodded. Ravi moved through the room like water flowing around stones. He checked the blast doors. Solid. He checked the secondary exits. One led to a maintenance corridor, sealed but not reinforced like the main doors. He checked the ventilation system. Too small for a Brakari to fit through, which was good. He came back to the center and raised his voice. Not shouting, just clear and firm, the kind of voice that cut through noise the way a blade cuts through cloth. "Listen to me. Everyone, listen." The room went quiet. Not because he was loud, because something in his tone commanded attention the way gravity commands falling. "The doors are sealed. That means the pirates cannot get in easily, but it also means we cannot get out. We have air, water, and supplies in this section for at least 12 hours. Help will come. But until it does, we need to be smart. Who put you in charge? Drugrovlet. Nobody, Ravi said, meeting the Tessik's 4 eyes without flinching. But I've lived through worse than this, and right now you need someone who has. DRO stared at him. Something passed between them, some silent measurement that males of every species seemed to understand. DRO's 4 arms uncrossed slowly. What do you need? DRO asked. Your engineering skills. Start reinforcing the secondary door with anything heavy, tables, shelving units, structural panels from the walls. If they get through the main door, that is our fallback. DRO nodded and moved. Ravi turned to Fenra. Keep the younger students together in the back room. Keep them calm. Keep them quiet. What are you going to do? She asked. Prepare. She did not ask for what. She was not sure she wanted to know. Ravi began moving through the library, picking up objects and examining them. Chemical reagents from the science reference section. Industrial cleaning solution from a maintenance closet. Wiring from a broken light panel. Furniture legs unscrewed from tables. He worked quickly and with a focus that was almost frightening, assembling things that Fenra did not recognize. Nissa had not gone to the back room. She stood near Ravi, her small body trembling, her wings dim. Are the bad ones going to get in? She asked in her tiny voice. Ravi paused. He knelt down, so he was at her level. The cold sharpness left his eyes for just a moment, and the gentle boy was back. They might try, he said softly, but I'm not going to let anything happen to you. Okay. Nissa's wings flickered. Then, slowly, they began to glow again. A faint, steady white. Okay, she whispered. Ravi stood and returned to his work. From beyond the sealed blast doors, deep in the station's corridors, came a sound of heavy boots and rough alien voices, growing louder. The pirates were coming. Fenra watched Ravi's hands move faster, building something she could not name from pieces of a library that was never meant to be a fortress. And she understood now, with a clarity that chilled her, what the galaxy kept getting wrong about humans. They were not dangerous because of their strength. They were dangerous because they could turn anything, anywhere, into a place where they could survive. The cutting torch hit the blast door with a sound like a dying animal, white-hot sparks spraying inward through the growing seam of molten metal. The students screamed. Some ran to the back. Some froze where they stood. Ravi did neither. He was already at the entrance, crouched behind a barricade of overturned tables, his hands steady, his breathing even. Around him, the library had been transformed. In 20 minutes, the quiet human had turned an academic reading room into something that looked like it was designed to hurt people. Chemical compound from the science shelves sat in open containers at precise locations. Cleaning solution had been spread in a thin, nearly invisible film across the floor in a 3-meter stretch just past the door. Wiring had been strung at shin and neck height between shelving units. A heavy fire extinguisher sat propped above the doorframe, rigged to fall. DRO had watched him build all of it. The Tessock had reinforced doors before. He had never seen someone turn a room into a weapon. Where did you learn this? DRO had asked. My uncle was a mountaineer and a soldier, Ravi said without looking up. He taught me 2 things. First, the ground you stand on is always your best weapon. Second, a prepared human is the most dangerous thing in any room. The cutting torch finished its circle. The section of blast door fell inward with a crash. Red emergency light poured through the opening along with smoke, and the stink of burned metal. .3 Brakari soldiers came through the hole, one after another. They were enormous, each one over 2 meters tall, covered in thick reptilian scales, and wearing scarred combat armor. They carried pulse rifles and moved with the confident swagger of predators who had never been prey. The first one made it 4 steps before his feet went out from under him. The cleaning solution on the floor turned the surface into something almost frictionless. His legs split apart, and he crashed down hard, his rifle clattering away. Before he could recover, a tension wire caught across his chest and pinned him awkwardly against a shelving unit. The second soldier saw his companion fall and raised his rifle. A glass container shattered against his face. The chemical inside, a concentrated laboratory irritant mixed with cleaning alkaline, hit his eyes and nostrils. He howled, clawing at his face, blinded and choking. The third soldier was smarter. He hung back, weapon up, trying to see through the smoke and chaos. He never saw Ravi coming from the side. The human moved low and fast, using the shelving units as cover, and hit the Brakari's weapon arm with a metal table leg so hard the rifle flew across the room. Before the soldier could swing his massive fist, Ravi was behind him, looping a wire around his wrists and yanking it tight. The entire fight took 11 seconds. Finra had counted. 11 seconds. 3 armed soldiers neutralized by a single unarmed human. The students in the back room had heard the crash and the screams. Some were crying. Nissa had her wings wrapped around herself like a cocoon. But when the noise stopped and Finra came to tell them it was over, they crept out and saw the 3 Brakari pirates restrained on the floor, groaning and struggling. And they saw Ravi standing in the middle of it all, not even breathing hard. DRO walked up to the nearest restrained pirate and stared down at him. Then he looked at Ravi. "You did not kill them," DRO said. It was not a question. It was something closer to disbelief. "They are not worth killing," Ravi said. He was already searching the pirates, removing weapons, communication devices, anything useful. And dead pirates cannot tell us what is happening on the rest of the station. Practical, efficient, merciful but not soft. DRO felt something shift in his chest. He had 4 arms and twice the mass of this human. He had grown up on a world where strength was everything. And yet standing next to Ravi, he felt small. What kind of planet makes something like him? DRO whispered to Finra. "A planet that is trying to kill you every single day," Finra whispered back. "And apparently, it only makes them stronger." Ravi activated one of the stolen communication devices. Pirate chatter filled the room, harsh voices speaking in Brakari trade common. He listened silently, his head tilted, his face unreadable. Finra came to stand beside him. "What are they saying?" "The main force is in the central auditorium. They have over 200 hostages. Station security tried to fight back, but they were overwhelmed." He paused. "Their leader is someone called Guldran. He is demanding ransom from the Galactic Union. So we wait for rescue." Ravi looked at the communication device, then at the hole in the blast door, then at the dark corridor beyond. "Rescue is hours away," he said. "But now we have weapons, information, and they do not know their scouts are down." Finra felt cold. "Ravi, what are you thinking?" He looked at her, and she saw both versions of him at the same time. The kind boy who helped Nissa pick up her tray, and the Deathworld survivor who had just put 3 armed soldiers on the ground in 11 seconds. "I am thinking that on Earth, the most dangerous predators are not the ones that chase you. They are the ones that wait, learn your patterns, and then take you apart piece by piece." He checked the charge on a stolen pulse rifle, then set it down. He picked up the metal table leg instead. "Watch the students," he told Finra and DRO. "Keep them safe. Keep them quiet. You're going alone." DRO said. "One person moves faster and quieter than a group, and they're not looking for a hunter. They think everyone on this station is prey." He stepped through the hole in the blast door and disappeared into the red-lit darkness of the corridor. Behind him, DRO turned to Finra with wide eyes. Finra could only shake her head. The galaxy's most underestimated species had just gone hunting. The ventilation shaft was narrow, dark, and smelled like recycled air and old metal. For most species on Station Auralia, it would have been a tight, claustrophobic nightmare. For Ravi, it felt like the cave systems back home in the foothills of the Himalayas, where he had spent childhood summers crawling through passages so tight he had to exhale just to squeeze through that he moved through the shaft on his elbows and knees, silent as a shadow, listening to the pirate communications through the stolen earpiece. He had memorized the station layout during his first month at the academy, not because he expected something like this, but because that was simply what he did. Back on Earth, his uncle had a saying, "Know every exit before you sit down. Know every path before you sleep." The pirates had taken the station in layers. Guldran's main force held the central auditorium with the hostages. Smaller squads patrolled the corridors in groups of 3 or 4, keeping the remaining decks locked down. Station security had been pushed back to the lower engineering levels, cut off, and unable to communicate. Ravi dropped out of the ventilation shaft into an empty maintenance corridor on Deck 11. He crouched in the dark and listened. Footsteps. Heavy. 2 sets, moving toward him from the left. He pressed himself into an alcove behind a power junction box and waited. Two Brakari soldiers walked past, pulse rifles resting lazily on their shoulders. They were talking, laughing about how easy the job was. A station full of students and scientists. No real fighters. Easy money. Ravi let them pass. Then he reached up to the environmental control panel on the wall. He had watched DRO work with these systems enough to know the basics. He keyed in a command and vented the atmosphere in the next corridor section, just enough to trigger the emergency warning. Alarms howled. The 2 soldiers cursed and ran toward the sound, straight into a sealed bulkhead that Ravi closed behind them using the same panel. 2 down. Trapped, not dead, he moved on. On Deck 9, he found a 3-soldier patrol guarding a secondary power relay. He could not go around them. The relay controlled gravity for this section, and he needed it. Ravi picked up a broken light panel from the floor and threw it down a side corridor. It clattered and bounced. 2 of the 3 soldiers went to investigate. The 3rd stayed at his post, alert but alone. Ravi came from above. He dropped from a ceiling access hatch, landed on the soldier's back, and wrapped his arm around the Brakari's thick neck. The soldier thrashed, but Ravi held on with legs locked around the torso and arms sealed tight. On Earth, he had once held onto the neck of a wild yak that had charged into his uncle's camp. A Brakari mercenary was bigger, but the principle was the same. Hold on. Stay calm. Wait. The soldier dropped after 8 seconds. Ravi tied him with cable from the relay panel, then accessed the gravity controls. He reduced gravity in the corridor where the other 2 soldiers were searching, then slammed it back to full in one sharp pulse. The sudden shift sent them crashing to the floor, disoriented and sick. By the time they staggered up, Ravi had sealed that section 2.5 more down. The pirate communications channel was getting louder. Angrier. Guldran's voice cut through, deep and rumbling like a rock slide. Squad 7, report. Squad 7, silence. Squad 4, report. More silence. Ravi allowed himself a small, grim smile. He had learned something else from his uncle. Fear is a weapon. If you cannot fight an army, make the army afraid. He reached the communication hub on Deck 7. It was guarded by a single technician, a nervous-looking alien who was not Brakari, probably a hired specialist. Ravi walked up behind him so quietly that the technician did not know he was there until Ravi spoke. I need to use this console. The technician spun, saw the human, and immediately put both hands in the air. He did not even reach for his sidearm. Please do not hurt me. I'm just a contractor. Then sit in the corner and do not touch anything. The technician sat so fast he nearly fell over. Ravi accessed the long-range communication array. Most of it was jammed, but the pirates had left one narrow frequency open for their own coordination with their fleet. Ravi rerouted it. He sent a compressed burst transmission on the emergency band, directed at the incoming rescue fleet. The message was short and precise. Pirate force of approximately 80 combatants. Leader named Guldran, Brakari mercenary. Main force concentrated in Central Auditorium, Deck 5. 200+ hostages. Defense grid offline. Security forces isolated in lower engineering. Station environmental and gravity controls partially accessible from maintenance panels on Deck 7 through 12. He sent it and wiped the transmission log. On the pirate channel, Guldran was screaming now. Reports of missing squads were coming from every deck. Someone finally said the words that Ravi had been waiting for. Sir, one of the captured scouts talked. It is a single human. A student. There was a long, ugly silence. Then Guldran's voice came back, quieter now, but edged with something that had not been there before. One human. A Deathworlder, sir. Another silence. Longer this time. Then Guldran spoke to the entire station. His voice boomed from every speaker, every intercom, every emergency channel. It echoed through the corridors where Ravi stood alone in the red-lit dark. I know you can hear me, human. I know what you are doing. It ends now. Come to the auditorium. Surrender yourself, or I will start killing one hostage every 5 minutes." Ravi stood still. His jaw tightened. His hands, steady through everything, curled into fists. Then he turned toward Deck 5, and he started walking. He did not sneak. He did not hide. He walked down the main corridor of Deck 5, like a man walking to his own funeral, hands visible, shoulders straight, and every pirate camera on the station watching him come. Ravi had done the math. 5 minutes per hostage meant he had no time for clever tricks in the dark. Goldrin wanted a show. Ravi would give him one, but it would not be the show Goldrin expected. Before leaving the communication hub, he had sent one more message. Not to the rescue fleet. To DRO, the message read, "When the lights go out, seal auditorium exits from outside. Use environmental panel access on Deck 5, Junction 12. You have 14 minutes. DRO had messaged back a single word. Understood. The auditorium doors were open and waiting for him. 12 Brakari soldiers lined the entrance corridor, rifles aimed at his chest. Ravi walked between them without slowing down. He could feel their confusion. They had expected a monster, a savage Deathworlder covered in blood and fury. Instead, they got a lean, quiet young man in a student uniform who looked like he had not slept in 2 days. The central auditorium was enormous. Hundreds of seats arranged in curved rows around a raised stage. Over 200 students and faculty sat huddled in the seats, guarded by armed pirates positioned at every aisle. Some hostages were crying. Some were silent with shock. A few looked up when Ravi entered, and he saw recognition flash across their faces. A human, the quiet one from xenobiology class. Goldrin stood on the stage that he was the biggest Brakari Ravi had ever seen. Nearly 3 meters tall, his scales were dark green and scarred from dozens of battles. He wore heavy combat plate that looked like it had been welded together from ship armor. A powered gauntlet covered his right fist, the kind that could punch through a bulkhead. His yellow eyes locked onto Ravi with the look of a predator that had caught something small and interesting. "So," Goldrin said, his voice rumbling through the room, "this is the Deathworlder who has been killing my soldiers." "I did not kill any of them," Ravi said, stopping at the base of the stage. "They are restrained. Alive." Goldrin tilted his massive head. "You had the chance to kill, and you did not. Your species is softer than the files say. Or maybe I just did not think they were worth the effort." The room went silent. Even the pirates stopped moving. Nobody talked to Goldrin like that. The mercenary leader's eyes narrowed. Then he laughed, a deep, grinding sound. "I like you, little human. It is a shame you will die here." He stepped forward, each footstep shaking the stage. "You killed my schedule, cost me soldiers, and humiliated me in front of my crew. I will make an example of you." "Before you do," Ravi said, his voice carrying clearly across the auditorium, "I want you to know something about humans." He was stalling. Every second mattered. Somewhere in the station, DRO was moving through maintenance corridors with Fenra and a group of students, heading for Junction 12. Somewhere out in the dark, the rescue fleet was closing in with every detail of the pirates' positions. "We do not come from a kind world," Ravi continued. "Our planet has been trying to kill us for 200,000 years. Ice ages, plagues, earthquakes, predators, floods, droughts, and wars. We survived all of it. Do you know how?" Goldrin said nothing. He was close now, looming over Ravi like a mountain of scales and armor. "Not by being the strongest," Ravi said. "Not by being the fastest. We survived because when something threatens the people we love, we do not stop. We do not bargain. We do not surrender. We become something that cannot be beaten because it will not stop coming." Goldrin's grin faded slightly. "You think you are the scariest thing on this station," Ravi said softly. "You are wrong. The scariest thing on this station is a human who has decided that everyone behind him is going to make it home alive." The lights went out. Every light on the station, every corridor, every emergency backup died at once. Perfect, total darkness fell over the auditorium like a blanket. DRO had done it. Environmental override, Junction 12. In the pitch black, Ravi dropped to the floor. He had counted the positions of every pirate in the room during his walk-in. 8 guards on the aisles, 4 by the doors. Goldrin on the stage. Humans could not see in the dark, but they did not need to. They could remember. Goldrin roared and swung his powered gauntlet blindly. The fist passed over Ravi's head, close enough that he felt the air move. Ravi rolled to the side, grabbed the edge of the stage, and vaulted up. His hands found Goldrin's arm, and he climbed the massive pirate like he had climbed rock faces back home. He found the nerve cluster behind the jaw, the one he had studied in Hollick's xenobiology class. Brachari Anatomy, Chapter 9, Cranial Nerve Bundle, Extreme Sensitivity to Sustained Pressure. He pressed. Hard. Goldrin staggered. His gauntlet swung again, wild and unfocused. Ravi held on, legs wrapped around the giant's torso, hands locked on the nerve point. It was like riding a landslide. But Ravi had held on through worse. Goldrin crashed to his knees, then to the floor. The lights came back on. Station security teams poured through every entrance simultaneously, armed and coordinated, guided by the transmission Ravi had sent hours ago. Finra was behind them with a group of freed students from the library, their faces pale but determined. The remaining pirates looked around at the sealed exits, the security teams, their fallen leader, and a single human standing on the stage above Goldrin's unconscious body. They dropped their weapons. The IT was over. Finra found out about the ribs when Ravi collapsed. Not during the fight. Not during the rescue. Not even during the long, exhausting hours of helping security round up the last of the pirates. He made it through all of that standing upright, giving clear directions, helping carry wounded students to the medical bay. He did not sit down. He did not stop. He did not even change his expression. He collapsed in the corridor outside the medical bay, quietly and without warning, like a tree that had been burning from the inside and finally ran out of wood. Finra screamed. DRO caught him before he hit the floor, all four arms wrapping around the human's body with a gentleness that no one would have expected from a TESOC. The medical team found 3 cracked ribs, a dislocated left shoulder, deep bruising across his back and torso, and microfractures in both hands. When they asked him when the injuries had happened, he thought about it and said, probably during the first fight in the library. Maybe the ventilation shaft after that. The Pelori doctor stared at him. You operated for over 6 hours with 3 cracked ribs and a dislocated shoulder. Ravi looked confused by the question. People needed help. The doctor turned to Finra. Is this normal for his species? Finra did not know whether to laugh or cry. I'm starting to think it is. They sedated him after that, mostly because the doctor was afraid Ravi would try to get up and help with station repairs. He was probably right. Ravi woke up 12 hours later in a quiet medical bay room. Soft blue light filtered through the ceiling panels. The station was calm. Through the window, he could see repair shuttles from the rescue fleet moving along the outer hull like silver insects. The crisis was over. Aurelio was safe. The first visitor was Instructor Hollick. The tall Chiron stood in the doorway for a long moment, his 4 black eyes unreadable. Then he walked in and stood at the foot of Ravi's bed. For perhaps the first time in his teaching career, Hollick looked uncertain. I owe you an apology, Hollick said. His mandibles clicked softly. I was wrong about you. I was wrong about your species. I thought Earth made its creatures brutal and simple. I understand now that it made them something far more complex. Ravi looked at him steadily. You were a good teacher, instructor. You just had incomplete data. Hollick made a sound that might have been a laugh. A generous assessment. He paused. When you are recovered, I would like you to guest lecture in my class on Deathworld survival adaptations. From a primary source perspective. Ravi smiled. I would like that. Hollick nodded once and left. In the corridor outside, Finra heard the old professor's footsteps pause. She peeked around the corner and saw Hollick standing with his head bowed, one clawed hand pressed against the wall. He stayed like that for 10 seconds. Then he straightened and walked away. Nissa came next. The small Pelori girl floated into the room on her delicate wings, carrying something cupped carefully in both hands. It was a flower, small and luminous, glowing with the same soft blue-white light as her wings. A bloom from her homeworld's garden aboard the station. She could not speak. Every time she tried, her eyes filled with tears and her wings flickered. So she placed the flower on the table beside Ravi's bed and took his hand instead. Her fingers were tiny against his palm. Ravi closed his hand gently around hers. "You were very brave, Nissa." She shook her head. "Yes, you were," he said softly. "Being scared and staying anyway. That is the bravest thing anyone can do." Her wings glowed bright, a warm, steady white, and she stayed like that, holding his hand until she fell asleep in the chair beside his bed. Darrow arrived last. The Tezsock stood in the doorway, filling it almost completely with his broad gray frame. He said nothing for a long time. He just looked at Ravi with an expression that was hard to read on a face made of what appeared to be living stone. Then he extended one of his forearms. Palm open, fingers spread. Among the Tezsock, it was the highest gesture of respect, offered only to those who had earned a place in your family line. Ravi reached out and took his hand. "I was wrong about humans," Darrow said. His voice was rough, like he was forcing the words through gravel. "I will not make that mistake again." "I was never offended," Ravi said. "You just did not know. Now I do." When the others had gone and the room was quiet, Fenra came in and sat on the edge of his bed. She did not say anything at first. She just looked at him, at the bandages around his ribs, the sling on his shoulder, the bruises visible above the neckline of his medical gown. "Were you scared?" she asked finally. During all of it, Ravi was quiet for a moment. His eyes drifted to the window, to the stars beyond the station, to the vast and cold emptiness that separated every living thing from every other. "Every second," he said. "From a moment the first explosion hit until the moment the lights came back on. I was terrified the entire time." "Then how did you keep going?" He looked at her. "Because you were all behind me. And on Earth, we have a simple rule. Fear does not tell you to stop. It tells you what is worth fighting for." Fenrir reached out and took his hand, the way Nissa had, but different somehow. Warmer Point 2 days later, the Academy held a formal assembly. The Galactic Union representative announced that Earth classification was under review. Not because humans were less dangerous than believed, but because their danger was matched by something the galaxy had failed to measure. Compassion, sacrifice, the willingness to break themselves for someone they barely knew. Ravi was back in Hollick's classroom the following week. The professor asked a question about hostile planetary ecosystems and turned to Ravi first. Ravi stood, and every single student in the room listened.